Every year, thousands of movies hit the screens, with many directors claiming their films are based on real-life events or actual people. The same claim has been made about The Wolf of Wall Street. But how much of that is true? And just how accurate are these claims? The facts behind the movie can sometimes be quite different from what we see on screen. To uncover the real story, let's dive into the details and find out whether The Wolf of Wall Street is grounded in truth or if it's more fiction than fact. We've all seen the movie and heard the legendary stories, but the real-life story of The Wolf of Wall Street is much more than just a couple of books or one film. And we're here to tell you all about it in this video.
In the 80s and 90s, the stock market was a place where ambition turned into greed. There was only one rule: make money and spend money. It was a world dictated by vice, fancy cars, expensive drugs, crazy parties, and lots of sex.
Before we get into the specifics, if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. One small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Thanks! And now let's briefly review Jordan Belfort's early years. The upbringing of Jordan Belfort is shown in a dramatic detail in The Wolf of Wall Street. His mother did little to protect him, while his father alternated between being abusive and being kind. In spite of these difficulties, Belfort consistently excelled in his class and battled anxiety, insomnia, and mental instability. He abandoned dental school and college when he realized that becoming a dentist was no longer a surefire way to become wealthy. Belfort was resolved to get wealthy in order to indulge in the indulgences he so desperately wanted after coming to the realization that money was the ultimate reality of life. His initial business effort involved providing culinary services, but it failed. He met his first wife at this time, whom he would eventually cheat on and file for divorce. He eventually started trading stocks, initially with the L.F. Rothschild business in 1987 at the height of the bond securities market. When Belfort's infamous story really started in 1993, he had already founded his own investing company, Stratton Oakmont, which was based in Long Island, New York, rather than on Wall Street. Despite getting wedded to model Nadine Caridi, partying, prostitution, and narcotics took up most of his life. According to Belfort, Wall Street traders frequently engaged in such excesses as a coping mechanism for the extreme stress of their employment. Before his new startup, he had a job in a firm that he quit later. As he entered the firm, this is how his new boss welcomed him.
Tutski. No, thank you, though.
You can guess that initially he intended to make money and get rich, but he showed him the other side of the coin. He told him there are only two ways to get success. First, to be relaxed. The other one is cocaine.
You gotta stay relaxed.
Yeah.
Second key to success in this racket is this little baby right here. It's called cocaine.
Right.
His boss told him the rules to get success in Wall Street.
Number one rule of Wall Street: nobody, I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or if you're Jimmy Buffett, nobody knows if the stock is gonna go up, down, sideways, or in fucking circles. Least of all stockbrokers. Right? It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
Well, fugazi, it's fake.
He was excited about the early job, and when he tried to show it to his boss, that is how he responded.
Fuck the clients. Your only responsibility is to put meat on the table. You got a girlfriend?
I'm married. I have a wife. Her name's Teresa. She cuts hair.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Think about Teresa. Name of the game: move the money from your client's pocket.
Later on, he wasn't alone in the wild life that he led. He cultivated an organizational culture to embody it. Being a member of the Stratton Oakmont team wasn't just about making money, but also spending it in the most outlandish ways possible. Belfort details the example he set for Stratton Oakmont's cadre of brokers, the type of lifestyle he encouraged them to lead, and how he used that lifestyle to control them. Thanks to the electronic NASDAQ stock exchange, it was no longer necessary for investment firms to be physically located on Wall Street, so Belfort founded Stratton Oakmont on nearby Long Island in 1989. To fill Stratton Oakmont's desk, Belfort says he deliberately recruited young, malleable traders and indoctrinated them into his way of thinking, the tenets of which were as follows. 1. Money is the solution to every single problem. 2. It's vital to make money while you're young and still able. 3. If you act like you're already rich, then the universe will make it so. He convinced his employees that life was all about big houses, fat bank accounts, flashy cars, and fancy boats for throwing wild parties. They bought into this idea so much, they spent their money as fast as they made it, chasing the high life he promised.
He could mold his employees into the best version of what he needed and build himself an army of money-hungry predators willing to shake up the stock market. He even had a nickname for them, the Strattonites. One of his biggest hits was taking Steve Madden's brand public. How? Well, his partners had Madden stock at about $5. He pumped up the value to about $20 a share through his boiler room operation just after opening.
Later, he revealed that he encouraged this behavior to keep his traders competitive and hungry, even as they racked in millions of dollars. Belfort wanted his employees to spend their money as quickly as they made it, keeping them on the hook to Stratton Oakmont and dependent on him as their leader. The flaw that Belfort discovered in this plan was that since he had to lead by example, he was just as trapped by his lifestyle as his brokers. Once he established his Wolf of Wall Street persona, he was expected to maintain it. If he didn't party, have promiscuous sex, and take every drug known to mankind, his staff would have seen it as a sign of weakness. The lifestyle led by Belfort's brokers isn't unique to Stratton Oakmont. After the 2008 financial crisis, Wall Street psychologist Jonathan Alpert observed the financial professionals often struggle with drug abuse and high-risk sexual behavior due to extreme stress. Alpert says that drug use, especially that of cocaine, is far more widespread in finance than in the other industries. Alpert also notes some financial professionals exhibit traits of antisocial personality disorder, such as manipulation, law-breaking, and disregard for others' well-being. He said that these financial high rollers, which presumably would include Belfort, don't usually seek help for their problems until after getting caught in questionable activities. It is said that the overall story of Jordan Belfort and his brokerage firm Stratton Oakmont, as presented in Scorsese's film, is true to life. But is this the whole truth, or there's something we don't know? The reality is that Belfort was violating countless laws at any given time, most of which involved defrauding his shareholders and manipulating the stock of dozens of companies. As noted by a former employee of Stratton, the story behind the movie has been slightly altered, but the wild partying betrayed is very much real, especially as you climb the ranks in an investment bank. The former employee shared, "I worked at a major investment bank for a year after college before moving to a hedge fund. This was only a few years ago, and the work hard, play hard mentality was still going strong. On several nights, our VPs and sometimes the associates would take us out partying to bond, and as you can imagine, it involved a lot of alcohol, strippers, and more alcohol. It seemed like many of them were regularly on drugs. A few times our VP would drop $10,000 to $50,000 on a bar tab in one night. After an 80-hour work week, people really let loose. I mean let loose. Eventually, I got into a long-term relationship and stopped going out with them, but the hard partying never stopped. In my experience, the partying wasn't as over the top as what's shown in the movie, but I've seen my share of ridiculous things. Things were a lot tamer at the hedge fund I worked at later, but a few colleagues still went all out. To add to the other answers, here's a short 2-minute interview with Jordan Belfort where he talks about what parts were true or not.
Stairs. They had a little setup down there. One of the brokers knew someone who knew someone, and so that was going on. And then a lot of the hooker stuff happened though at night, and bachelor parties, and also people were going to the city. So there was just a lot of that stuff going on.
How about sailing a yacht into a terrible storm? Nobody's that crazy, right? Well, Belfort told me that is also a fact.
That is just the craziest thing, that storm.
Was it true that you pushed the captain to go, even though he said?
Oh yeah.
It is true.
Yeah,
that part of the movie was all
he was
accurate.
he was a great guy though. But he was a little bit more. Let's do it. He was he was a wild guy. Amazing captain. He loved the action himself a little bit, but no one. It was a freak storm. No one thought that was going to happen. He's not insane, so he never thought that 7-foot waves would become 50-foot waves. That was just like a freak thing that happened. So it was going to be a little bit of an adventure that we could talk about, and it ended up being a lot more than that.
Life-threatening.
Yeah, for sure.
This is my home! They're gonna need to send in the National Guard to take me
triumphant return to his company after he had previously left, that is fiction.
When I gave the speech where I say I'm not leaving, I'm staying, the show goes on, I left. When I gave that speech, I left.
You really did
I
leave
did
your
leave.
company.
Yeah, I left after 95. I completely cut ties with the firm, and then it went off in a different direction.
How does this actually work?
There's a big money sign.
They get launched at the time, they stick.
This is their gift, okay? They're built to be thrown like a lawn dart.
Now, this scene particularly disturbed me, where Jordan and his team were throwing little people around for sport.
No, that's not
true.
However, the film captures the excess and moral decay of the financial world during that time. Its accuracy can be evaluated from several angles. Factual basis. The film is rooted in real events, depicting Belfort's rise and fall, as well as the fraudulent practices of his brokerage firm, Stratton Oakmont. Many of the incidents portrayed, such as the pump and dump schemes, lavish parties, and the eventual FBI investigation, are based on actual events. Leonardo DiCaprio's portrayal of Belfort is charismatic and engaging, but some critics argue that the film glamorizes his lifestyle and downplays the negative consequences of his actions. While Belfort's character is shown as morally ambitious, some details about his personality and motivations may be exaggerated for dramatic effect. As with many biopics, the film takes artistic liberties for narrative purposes. Certain events may be condensed, altered, or dramatized to enhance the story or maintain pacing. For example, the film's depiction of Belfort's drug use and its effects is stylized, which may not fully represent the reality of addiction. The film sparked discussions about the ethics of Wall Street practices and the culture of excess in finance. It has been criticized for potentially glorifying Belfort's behavior rather than serving as a cautionary tale. Here's another clip that shows that some events in the film were added to make it more entertaining. Not the 100% truth can be published.
It doesn't glorify criminal behavior. With due reason, it is pretty wild. The former co-founder of Stratton Oakmont has gone far to debunk certain aspects of the film. Nobody called Belfort the Wolf of Wall Street, there was no memo requesting a sex-free work environment, and there was never a chimpanzee in the office. But Porsche did swallow a goldfish, a source of protein, I would.
While The Wolf of Wall Street is based on real events and gives us a colorful look at the darker side of the financial world, it leans more towards entertainment and storytelling than strict accuracy. But let's hear from you guys out there on Wall Street or who know people working in finance. What do you think? Is the film a true reflection of reality? Or is it more fiction than fact? Share your thoughts. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with more related videos. This video was made by movie fans for movie fans.